Hey everyone, welcome back to Epic Pit, Reddit Stories, the place where the wildest stories come to life. If you enjoy these stories, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share. It really helps the channel grow. Today, I've got not one but two amazing stories for you. The first story is called The Wedding DVD That Made My Day. So, sit back, relax, and let's jump right in. This happened many years ago, but it's one of those stories that has lived rent-free in my head ever since. And trust me, you'll understand why. Let's rewind to the late 1990s. Back in those happy-go-lucky college days, I had a girlfriend, Courtney. And like many young guys, I thought she was the one. My forever girl. The person I'd grow old with. I was very, very wrong. Because, as it turns out, Courtney had other plans. Plans involving another guy, Mike. Now, everybody knew Mike. His dad was loaded. He had the golden path laid out. Harvard Law, prestigious firm, piles of money. Meanwhile, I was just me. Average guy. Average plans. And then came graduation. That's when Courtney and Mike broke the news together. Not only were they dating, they were engaged. When I asked, loudly, why, Courtney just shrugged. I need a husband with prospects. Translation: money. To make it even worse, the job I'd lined up after school vanished because of corporate restructuring. So, in one single week, I lost my girlfriend and my job. So, what did I do? I did what any heartbroken, jobless guy would do. I joined the army. At first, I thought it'd just be a few years. But after OCS, Ranger School, and assignment to a regiment, it was September 2001. You can guess how busy life got after that. Fast forward a year later. I was finishing my first tour in Afghanistan when I got a package from Jamie, a college friend who knew the whole story. Inside was a DVD with a note that said, "Please watch. You're going to love it." So one night, I popped it in. And sure enough, there it was. Courtney and Mike's wedding. Beautiful venue, fancy guests, bride looking stunning, everything going smoothly. Until the minister got to that part. If anyone here has reason why these two should not be wed, speak now, or forever hold your peace. And that's when the gates of hell opened. A man stood up, some guy I'd never seen before. Let's call him Rick. Rick locked eyes with Courtney and shouted, "How can you do this?" Courtney's face turned pale. She looked terrified. Then Rick dropped the bomb. Courtney was pregnant, with his child. Mike's face turned red. He looked at Rick, then at Courtney, realizing the woman he stole from me was carrying someone else's baby. And just when everyone was processing that, another voice shouted. This time, a very pregnant woman. Let's call her Mary. She stood up, cradling her belly, and demanded, "How is Mike going to take care of our child?" The guests gasped. Courtney's jaw dropped. Mike looked like he'd just been hit by a truck. In 2 minutes flat, the bride was exposed for carrying another man's baby, and the groom was revealed as the father of another woman's child. The parents stormed in, dragged their kids aside, and the wedding was over. When the DVD ended, I just sat there in silence. Then I laughed. Oh, I laughed hard. The woman who broke my heart for a better prospect got humiliated at her own wedding. And the guy she left me for? Publicly exposed in front of everyone. Jamie was right. I loved it. I showed it to my army buddies. They thought it was hilarious. That DVD became a running joke in our unit. Even a year later, in Iraq, when the days were rough, we'd put it on again. And no matter what was happening around us, that wedding disaster always made us laugh. As for the aftermath, Mike went on to be a lawyer, just like everyone expected. Courtney found a job and moved on with her life. Maybe they raised kids with Rick and Mary. Who knows? Who cares? Me. I stayed in the army. I went back to Afghanistan, back to Iraq, and into places I still can't talk about. But through it all, that DVD, that little piece of poetic justice, never failed to bring me joy. Because sometimes, karma doesn't just knock politely. Sometimes, it kicks the door wide open. Alright, that was one wild ride. But don't go anywhere, because the second story is just as unbelievable. This one is called, The Worst Neighbor Ever, and My Secret Revenge. Imagine growing up next door to a man who seemed to make it his life's mission to make your family miserable, throwing snow in your yard, screaming about your lawn, and even creeping around when no one was home. But sometimes, the best revenge doesn't come with fists. It comes with creativity. Let's dive in. You know how people always say, love thy neighbor? Yeah, well, I grew up next door to the one guy who could make even Mother Teresa want to throw hands. This man was in his 70s, but don't let that fool you. Age didn't mellow him out. No. He was basically a 70-year-old toddler with anger issues. If you looked up grumpy old man in the dictionary, I'm convinced his face would be there, probably mid-yell. From the very beginning, he made it clear that he wasn't just going to be a bad neighbor. He was going to be the final boss of bad neighbors. Every winter, without fail, he'd shovel his driveway. You'd think, okay, that's normal. Except he had this unique snow disposal system, which was to launch it directly into our yard. Our freshly cleared walkway, buried. Our nice clean driveway, packed again. It wasn't just a little spillover, either. This man was strategic. He treated snow like it was toxic waste he had to get rid of, and our yard was the dump site. When the snow melted, his hobbies switched gears. If we weren't home, he'd wander onto our property, clippers in hand, and start trimming our trees. Like some rogue landscaper who forgot the whole permission part of landscaping. We'd come home to freshly hacked branches and piles of leaves, and he'd act like he had done us a huge favor. And oh, the grass. This man had a personal vendetta against our lawn. He'd yell at us, yes, yell, because our grass didn't look nice. I don't know what he expected. Augusta National? We were kids with a push mower, not a landscaping company with a 10-man crew. And speaking of mowing, this part still gives me the creeps. My sister, who at the time wasn't even 18, would be out cutting the grass, and he'd just stand there. Watching. No shame. Just staring. Like he was inspecting her mowing technique or something. It was beyond unsettling. We started calling it the Neighbor Watch program, but not the good kind. Now, one winter day, things really escalated. We were outside, just shoveling the snow in front of our own house, minding our own business. Suddenly, I hear this loud shout. I look up, and here he comes, charging across our yard, like a bull who just spotted red. Hands clenched, face beet red, muttering a string of curse words that would make a sailor say, "Sir, calm down." It was obvious. He was coming over to fight. Over snow. I dropped my shovel, stood my ground, and raised my fists. I told him flat out, "If you come any closer, I'll drop you." And you know what? That was the first time I saw him hesitate. He froze, gave me this death glare, muttered something about respect, and stormed back across the yard. We called the police, of course, but they basically shrugged and said, "Well, he's old." Like, what? That's a free pass for attempted assault. Eventually, karma did catch up with him. Turns out, he was arrested and actually spent time in prison for abusing his wife. Suddenly, everything about his behavior made sense. He wasn't just a bad neighbor. He was a bad person. But here's the part no one in my family knew at the time. See, every time this guy screamed at us, dumped snow in our yard, or just generally acted like Satan's cranky uncle, I'd get my quiet revenge. Oh. Jehovah's Witnesses. That's right. I would secretly call or email them, give his address, and set up a visit. And here's the thing. He absolutely despised anything to do with religion. I mean, if someone so much as said, "God bless" to him, his face would twist like he'd bitten into a lemon. So picture this. Every few weeks, the doorbell rings. He opens it, already annoyed, only to find two polite Jehovah's Witnesses standing there with pamphlets. "Good afternoon, sir. Do you have a moment to talk about?" Slam. 10 minutes later, another knock. He storms back to the door, veins bulging. I told you people to leave. And from my window, I'd be watching. Grinning. Sometimes even holding back laughter as he paced around his porch, muttering like a cartoon villain. The best part? He never caught on. Not once. He probably thought he'd just been cursed with the world's most persistent Jehovah's Witness recruitment team. This went on for years. He tormented us, and I kept dialing up the visits like some kind of divine Uber Eats. Except instead of food, it was religion he never ordered. Years later, after he was long gone and my sister and I were grown, I finally confessed to my parents. We were sitting around, swapping old stories, and I said, "Oh, by the way, every time he messed with us, I used to set him up with Jehovah's Witness visits." My mom and dad just stared at me. Then they burst out laughing. All that time, they'd thought divine justice was at work. Nope, it was just me with a phone and a mischievous streak. Do I regret it? Not one bit. I mean, what else can you do when your neighbor is a nightmare? You either go crazy, or you get creative. And I chose creative. So no, I didn't fight him. I didn't get into screaming matches or try to one-up him with my lawn care. Instead, I gave him a dose of something he couldn't stand. And honestly, watching him rage at those poor Jehovah's Witnesses was better than any revenge I could have come up with. So yeah, I grew up with the worst neighbor in the world. He yelled, he threatened, he spied, he dumped snow, and he generally made our lives miserable. But in the end, I had the last laugh. Because while he thought he was winning, I was behind the scenes pulling the strings, sending wave after wave of polite strangers to his doorstep, armed with pamphlets and Bible verses. And the image of him slamming his door in their faces? That's the one memory that makes me smile every single time. You've been watching Epic Pit, Reddit Stories, where the wildest tales come alive. See you in the next one.